right, so you have a big presentation coming up, and you want to make sure it really hits home.
For sure.
Well, that's where this deep dive comes in.
Right.
You sent us some fantastic material on presentations, and we're going to break it down today.
Absolutely.
Including this super insightful article from Harvard Business Review by Chris Anderson.
Oh, wow.
The TED curator himself.
He knows his stuff.
So we're going to extract the absolute key takeaways so you can really connect with your audience.
Make it count.
I'm excited for this one.
Me too. It's fascinating how TED Talks manage to make even the most complex ideas so engaging.
Right.
There's a real art to it, and luckily Anderson breaks down some of that magic in this article.
He's worked with so many speakers over the years. I bet he's seen it all.
Oh, definitely.
From total bombs to, like, presentations that light up the stage.
It's true.
So where do we even begin?
Well, Anderson really believes in the power of stories.
Okay.
He argues that every great presentation needs a compelling narrative, a journey that the audience can go on with the speaker.
Okay, I see where you're going with this, because one thing that stood out to me was Anderson calling these successful talks miracles.
Oh, interesting.
Because they can actually shift how people see the world.
I love that.
It's not just about, you know, spitting out facts and figures.
Right.
It's about changing perspectives.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And it highlights something else that Anderson emphasizes.
Yeah.
Knowing your audience.
Okay.
You can't just assume they're all experts or even that they care about your topic as much as you do.
Right.
You have to meet them where they are and draw them into your world.
So it's like building a bridge.
It is.
You start from common ground and lead them towards your message.
That's a great analogy.
But how do you actually do that?
Well, Anderson uses a really compelling example in the article.
Okay.
He talks about Richard Turer, a 12-year-old Maasai boy who invented lion lights.
Lion lights?
Yeah.
What are lion lights?
To protect his family's livestock from lion attacks.
Hold on. A 12-year-old figured out how to stop lions.
He did. It's incredible.
That's amazing. What did these lion lights even do?
It's pretty ingenious, actually.
Okay.
Richard noticed that lions were afraid of moving lights, so he created a system of flashing LED lights powered by solar panels.
Wow.
And get this, Richard was incredibly shy at first.
Okay.
And his English wasn't great, but the TED team saw the potential in his story.
They must have.
They coached him for months, helping him frame his narrative and find his voice.
Okay, I'm hooked. What happened when he finally gave his TED Talk?
It was a total sensation.
Wow.
The audience was captivated by his story, his ingenuity, and even his vulnerability.
I bet.
He received a standing ovation, and the video of his talk went viral.
I mean, you know, I think a lot of people might hear that and think,
Yeah.
well, I haven't invented anything amazing.
Right.
And I certainly don't have a story as dramatic as that.
It's easy to feel that way.
So what would you say to them?
I think it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking our stories aren't worth telling.
Right.
But Anderson makes a crucial distinction.
Okay.
It's not about having some extraordinary experience.
Right.
It's about finding that unique angle.
Okay.
The personal insight.
Yeah.
The specific contribution that you bring to the table.
Yeah.
Everyone has a story. It's just about figuring out how to tell it.
So don't just list your achievements or rattle off facts.
Exactly.
Go deeper and share those aha moments that make your work unique.
Precisely. To illustrate this, Anderson contrasts two speakers at an energy conference,
Okay.
a mayor and a former governor.
Okay.
The mayor just listed all these impressive projects. Honestly, it came off as bragging.
I bet.
And the audience was bored.
Yeah.
But then the former governor took the stage. She didn't list achievements.
Okay.
Instead, she shared a vision, an idea.
I like it.
And she used stories from her time in office to illustrate her points.
See, that's the difference between a presentation that just washes over you.
Right.
And one that sticks with you.
It's true.
You remember the idea, the vision, and how it made you feel.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another critical aspect of presentations, delivery.
Okay.
Anderson outlines three main methods.
Okay.
Reading from a script, using bullet points, and memorizing your talk.
Oh, man. You know what drives me crazy?
What's that?
When someone just stands there and reads their presentation word for word.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're not even talking to us, just reciting words from a page.
I know. It's so impersonal.
Yeah.
And Anderson actually shares an example of this.
Has he?
He talks about a speaker who insisted on using a monitor to read his talk.
Oh, no.
And you could just feel this horrible sinking feeling in the audience as they realized he wasn't connecting.
Oof. Yeah, it's like they're hiding behind the words.
Yeah.
Afraid to let their personality shine through.
Absolutely.
Okay, so reading a script is a no-go.
Right.
What about memorizing the whole thing?
Well, memorization can be effective.
Yeah.
But it's a huge commitment. Anderson mentions Jill Bolt-Taylor, a brain researcher who gave a phenomenal TED Talk about recovering from a stroke.
Oh, wow.
She rehearsed her talk dozens of times to make sure she had it down perfectly.
That takes dedication.
Yeah.
But for those of us who don't have months to memorize a presentation,
right.
What's the alternative?
Well, Anderson suggests using bullet points as a roadmap.
Okay.
Especially if you're short on time. The key is to know what you want to say for each point and focus on remembering the transitions between them.
Okay.
It's about having structure, but also allowing yourself the freedom to speak naturally.
So it's like having a safety net without getting trapped in a script.
Exactly.
You can still maintain that connection with the audience.
That's the goal.
Which is so important.
It is.
And Anderson also emphasizes finding the right tone.
Okay.
Like, he suggests aiming for a conversational style.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to sound super formal or authoritative.
Right, because people can spot inauthenticity a mile away.
Total. All of this makes sense. But I think a lot of people, myself included, get nervous about actually being on stage.
I get it.
So what about stage presence?
Okay.
How do you handle those butterflies?
Well, first of all, nerves are totally normal.
I hope so.
It's just your body giving you energy to perform.
Okay.
Anderson actually assures us that the audience expects you to be a little nervous.
Really?
Yeah, it's human.
That makes me feel better.
One of the biggest mistakes people make is moving their bodies too much.
Oh, yeah.
Swaying, shifting their weight, pacing back and forth.
I've definitely seen that.
It can be distracting.
It makes the speaker seem less confident, almost like they're trying to escape the spotlight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The simple act of keeping your lower body still can dramatically improve your stage presence.
Okay.
You can still use hand gestures for emphasis, but avoid unnecessary movement.
Got it.
And of course, eye contact is crucial. Find a few friendly faces in the audience and connect with them directly.
It's almost like having a conversation.
It is.
Rather than addressing a faceless crowd.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
You know, one of the most encouraging anecdotes Anderson shares is about Susan Cain, the author who wrote the book Quiet.
Okay.
She was terrified to give her TED Talk.
Oh, wow.
And you could feel her vulnerability on stage.
That's relatable.
But here's the amazing thing.
What?
The audience loved her talk.
Really?
Her vulnerability actually made her even more engaging.
Wow.
They were rooting for her, and her talk became one of the most popular that year.
That's amazing. So don't be afraid to be yourself, even if you're nervous.
Exactly. Authenticity is key. And sometimes showing your vulnerability can actually create a deeper connection with the audience.
Makes sense. Now let's talk visuals.
Okay.
A common question is, do I need to use slides?
Right.
It's almost become the default these days.
It has.
Like if you're giving a presentation, you have to have a PowerPoint.
Yeah. And Anderson actually challenges that assumption. He says visuals can be powerful, but they shouldn't become a crutch. If your story can stand on its own, you might consider going without slides altogether.
That's interesting. So it's about making a conscious choice, not just defaulting to slides because everyone else does.
Exactly. And if you do decide to use slides, it's worth exploring alternatives to traditional PowerPoint. Anderson mentions Prezi, which offers a more dynamic and visually engaging way to present information.
I've seen some really cool presentations done with Prezi. It's like taking the audience on a visual journey, zooming in and out of different ideas and concepts.
Right. And if your presentation involves a lot of visual content, like photography or design, slides can be a really effective way to showcase that work. Anderson suggests putting slides on an automatic timer so the images change every 15 seconds or so. This keeps the presentation moving and allows the audience to fully experience the visuals.
It's like creating a visual rhythm that complements your spoken words. Speaking of visuals, what about video? I think a lot of people are tempted to use video in their presentations, but it can be tricky to do it well.
Absolutely. Anderson provides some great tips for using video effectively. First and foremost, keep it short. If your video is longer than 60 seconds, you risk losing the audience's attention.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
It's easy to get carried away with video, but no one wants to sit through a 5-minute clip in the middle of a presentation.
Right. And avoid anything that sounds self-promotional or like an infomercial. People are conditioned to tune those out. Also, be mindful of the soundtrack. You don't want to blast the audience with loud music or annoying sound effects.
Okay, so short, to the point, and no cheesy infomercial vibes. How about showing a clip of yourself being interviewed on CNN? I've seen some speakers do that.
Anderson says that's a big no-no. It comes across as self-serving, and it's just not interesting for the audience. They're already listening to you live. They don't need to see you on a screen talking about yourself.
It's like double the ego, half the engagement.
Exactly. But used correctly, video can be incredibly powerful. Anderson shares an example from a TED Talk about the intelligence of crows. The speaker showed a short clip of a crow bending a hook to get food out of a tube. It perfectly illustrated his point about crow intelligence in a way that words alone couldn't have done.
That's a great example. Sometimes a visual demonstration can be far more effective than a verbal explanation. Okay, so we've covered the framing, the delivery, the stage presence, and the visuals. What about practice?
Anderson stresses that practice is absolutely crucial. The more you rehearse, the more confident and authentic you'll become.
I think that's true for any skill, right?
Yeah.
The more you practice, the better you get. But what about feedback? Do you have any tips on getting good feedback during the rehearsal process?
Seek feedback from experienced presenters. They can offer more targeted and valuable insights. And be selective about who you ask for feedback. Different people will have different opinions, and it can get overwhelming if you're trying to incorporate everyone's suggestions.
So find a trusted mentor or someone who has a good track record of giving presentations. Don't just ask your mom or your best friend unless they happen to be presentation experts.
Right. And Anderson shares his own personal experience of giving his first TED Talk. He admits that he was nervous and even hit that valley of awkwardness where he wasn't quite sure he had the talk down. But he pushed through it, kept practicing, and ultimately delivered a successful presentation.
It's encouraging to hear that even Chris Anderson, the curator of TED, gets nervous before giving a talk. Makes me feel a little better about my own pre-presentation jitters.
The key takeaway here is that practice and persistence pay off. Don't be afraid to push through those initial feelings of self-doubt or awkwardness. Keep rehearsing, seek feedback, and trust that you'll find your rhythm.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. It's clear that there's no magic formula for giving a killer presentation, but there are some key principles that we can all apply to improve our skills.
Exactly. It all starts with having a compelling idea that you're passionate about sharing.
Then it's about crafting a story that takes the audience on a journey. Choosing the right delivery style, developing a strong stage presence, using visuals effectively, and practicing.
And remember, it's okay to be nervous. Embrace those nerves and channel them into energy and authenticity.
So it's about substance over style, but style still matters.
Precisely. Finding the right balance between content and delivery, between passion and polish, is what elevates a good presentation to a great one.
And one last thing I want to highlight from the article is the importance of being yourself. Don't try to copy someone else's style or force yourself into a mold that doesn't feel authentic.
Yes. Embrace your unique voice and perspective. That's what will make your presentation truly memorable.
You know, it's funny. We often think about presentations as these formal, scripted events. But what I'm hearing from you is from Chris Anderson's article is that it's really about connection. It's about sharing an idea, a passion, a story in a way that resonates with the audience.
Yeah, that's a great observation, and it leads to something else Anderson talks about. He mentions the need to tailor your presentation to different contexts.
That's interesting. So what works for a TED Talk might not work for a board meeting or a client pitch.
Exactly. He gives some specific examples.
Like what?
Like if you're presenting research findings,
Okay.
he suggests sending the full report to the audience beforehand.
Makes sense.
Then you can use the presentation to highlight the key takeaways.
So no one has to sit through you just reading the report they could have read themselves.
Right. Exactly. And for a financial presentation, data is king.
Yeah, for sure.
But Anderson warns against just throwing numbers at the audience. He suggests weaving in a narrative, a story that helps them connect with the data emotionally.
So even in a data-driven presentation, you still need that human touch.
You always do.
Got it.
Then for a product launch,
Yeah.
the focus should be on the value your product brings to the world.
Okay.
Tell stories that show how real people will use it and how it will make their lives better.
So don't just list features and specs. Show them why they should care.
Exactly. And for a VC pitch,
Mm-hmm.
you need to be concise and compelling.
Oh,
Get your idea across quickly and use the remaining time for Q&A.
so tailor your approach.
Yeah.
Know your audience.
Always.
And always focus on the value you're providing.
That's the key.
I like it. All right, so Anderson ends the article with a really important reminder.
Okay.
There's no one right way to give a presentation.
It's true.
The most memorable talks are those that feel fresh and authentic.
Absolutely.
So don't try to copy someone else's style.
No.
Find what works for you.
Exactly.
What feels natural and genuine.
Be yourself.
Love it. Be yourself. Such a simple but powerful message.
It is.
And I think it's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah, I agree.
So to recap our deep dive into Chris Anderson's article,
Hmm?
it boils down to this. Substance over style.
Yes,
Practice is critical.
absolutely.
Engage authentically.
So important.
Simplicity wins.
For sure.
And personalize your approach.
Those are all excellent points, and I'd add one more.
What's that?
Don't be afraid to experiment and find what works best for you.
Okay.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach to giving a killer presentation.
That's great advice. So to all our listeners out there who are prepping for a big presentation,
Yeah.
remember, you got this.
You do.
Go out there and share your ideas with confidence and authenticity.
And have fun. Presenting can be a really rewarding experience when you approach it with the right mindset.
That's right. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of ideas that matter.